My name is Emily Davis, and I'm 31. My life is measured, scheduled, and color coded, from my morning coffee to my late night spreadsheets. I like things orderly, the way lists can shape reality, the way reminders can corral chaos. But with family, order is always an illusion. I'm also the mother of Max, my 8-year-old son. He keeps a flashlight under his pillow and calls thunderstorms sky drums. I sometimes think he's the only part of my life that isn't color-coded, the only part that can still surprise me. My sister Jenna is 32, married to Kyle, a contractor who is always about to land something big. Jenna has 3 kids under 9, each a whirlwind of energy and entitlement. My parents hover around us like a Greek chorus. My father with his homespun wisdom, family takes care of family, and my mother with her gentle scold, Emily, you don't understand what it's like to be a parent. Every year, we gather at my parents' split-level ranch for Christmas. The rules are simple. Adults draw names, $40 cap, focus on the kids. But I never stay on budget for the kids. I justify it as love. The truth is messier. I'm chasing approval, a pat on the shoulder that never comes. This year, I told myself I would go big, one final splurge. I made a spreadsheet for Jenna's kids. Lego sets, tablets for school apps, sneakers that lit up like tiny parades, a dollhouse with working lights, art sets with markers that didn't streak. I wrapped everything meticulously, labeled in block letters, from Aunt Emily. On Christmas Eve, we pulled into my parents' driveway. Frost stitched the edges of the shrubs. The sky was that deep, blue evening shade that makes lights look like floating stars. Dad hummed along to a classic rock station in the garage. Mom fussed over a ham the size of a bowling ball. Jenna arrived late with the kids, laughing too loudly, the smell of vanilla body spray trailing behind her. You brought way too much, Mom said when she saw the mountain of boxes I carried. Automatic. I gave her a smile, the one I've perfected over decades of family scrutiny. Jenna's eyes skimmed the pile. Half smile, half assessment. They're going to lose their minds, she said. We went through the rituals, hot chocolate in mismatched mugs, arguments about whether Die Hard counts as a Christmas movie, setting out cookies. Max fell asleep on the couch with a candy cane in his fist like a tiny flag. I carried him to the guest room, tucked him under my grandmother's old quilt, and stood by the tree alone, staring at the glow in the window glass. A second tree reflected outside. Morning arrived with the usual chaos. Kids thumping down the hall, Dad jingling antique sleigh bells, Mom feigning surprise, as if Christmas weren't predictable. Max tore into his first present, a box light enough to float, but soft as disappointment. Inside was a single black click pen, the kind sold in 5-packs at the drugstore. Was I bad this year? He asked, voice wobbling. Not a bang, not a scream, just a clean, straight line opening in my chest. Across the room, Jenna filmed her kids tearing into the pile of gifts I bought. Liam clutched the Lego box like it was a lifeboat. Piper held the dollhouse ribbon reverently. Ella shrieked over the tablet. And Max, my son, clutched his pen, small and relentless. I looked at my parents. Mom adjusted a garland. Dad shrugged. We had to prioritize, he said, as if explaining a weather event. I clenched my jaw. I had prioritized, always. This was the moment I realized generosity in my family was never enough. It became expectation, a duty, a transaction. And I was tired of being the third parent. Flashbacks of past Christmases and financial support played in my mind. The newborn Piper, the strip mall parking lot cries from Jenna, late Target runs for emergencies I covering dance recital costumes, back-to-school shoes, apartment deposits. Every time, my parents applauded me like a competent appliance. Love in our family was measured in what I could provide, not the heart I put in. By November, the requests stacked like bricks. Laptops, school supplies, every need that came down the line. I made a note in my app, tallying gifts, art sets, sneakers, and more. Max brought home a $25 field trip slip. I stared at my bank balance and swallowed hard. Enough. A week before Christmas, I texted Mom and Dad. I'm sticking to budget. Mom said, we'll see. Dad said, don't be dramatic. Jenna chimed in. We got Max something nice, by the way. I typed back, you didn't have to. But I knew nice meant expensive. Christmas morning confirmed the pattern. Max unwrapped socks and a pen. The cousins tore through the pile I bought. The zipper inside me had opened all the way. For the first time, I decided to stop being the faucet. I went to the bathroom, braced my hands on the sink, stared at the photos of the glowing tree and mountains of boxes, and made a decision. I would take back what I paid for. Back in the living room, Max built a skyline from empty boxes, drawing roads with his pen. "Mom," he said softly, "can we go home soon?" "In a bit," I said. "Want to help me first?" He nodded. I carried box after box to the SUV. "What are you doing?" Jenna asked. "Tidying," I said, calm. Inside, the zipper had finally reached the end. The fabric of expectation separated two clean halves. I held up my phone to the pile of gifts. "Look at the stack," I said. "Now look at the labels." My notes app displayed tablet, Lego, dollhouse, sneakers, headphones, art sets, all paid by me. Max came to the tree with purpose, reading each tag. "Buddy, can you bring anything that says Aunt Emily to the door?" he asked. He was serious, meticulous, a kid with his own mission. I nodded. Jenna stepped in, blocking him. "He doesn't get to decide." "Neither do you," I said. "Not about my money, not about my kid." One by one, the boxes went to the car. I took a final photo of the tree, half bare, half proof of what was truly purchased. Text sent. Gifts retrieved. No lecture, no speech, just clarity. Dad called from the porch. "If you leave like this, don't come back." I turned. "If you mean it, say it plainly." He didn't. Max buckled himself in. I slid into the driver's seat, heart pounding but steady. "What do you want for breakfast?" I asked. "Pancakes," he said. "Too many chocolate chips." "We can do that," I said, and didn't look back in the rearview mirror. After that Christmas morning, I realized something. My generosity had become invisible, a silent expectation everyone assumed would always exist. Max watched me carefully, his small eyes alert to the shift in my energy. I couldn't blame him for noticing. The imbalance had been building for years. I thought back to last spring. Jenna needed money for swim lessons. Normally, I'd have written the check without thinking. But this time, I said aloud, "I can't this time." The words felt foreign, as if I'd betrayed a rule I didn't know existed. The response was instant. 10 frantic texts in 3 minutes. "It's $300. They'll drown. You're unbelievable." Mom called immediately, her voice soft but firm. "Emily, you know consistency matters. Don't be cruel." I held the phone away from my ear. They weren't asking. They were instructing. The expectation was clear. Love in this family was proven through transactions, and I was the credit card that always went through. Max had started noticing too. One evening, he handed me a carefully sanded and painted bike he named Tiger, the color orange, his favorite. I'd found it used, refurbished it, and handed it to him proudly. When Jenna saw it, she laughed. "Ah, vintage," she said, and then turned to her children. "Not everyone gets new everything. It's a joke." Max's lips pressed into a thin line. He knew, and he remembered. By November, the asks stacked like bricks. Laptops, school supplies, art kits, costumes, fees for activities I couldn't afford without stretching my account. Every time I thought I'd reached my limit, the next emergency appeared, and I absorbed it. My parents applauded me like I was a competent appliance. "You've always been organized," Mom would say. "We're proud you can help." Dad chimed in. "Family takes care of family in our house." Translation: Emily takes care of everyone else. And yet, when I tried to pull back, the scripts returned. Jenna would call. "It's literally a couple hundred. You make that in a day. Do you want them to feel left out?" And if I argued boundaries, I became cold or difficult. Love in this family was conditional and transactional. I provided, therefore I existed. That understanding didn't bring relief. It brought exhaustion and the quiet accumulation of rage. I promised myself I wouldn't repeat this Christmas. A week before, I told Mom and Dad, "I'm sticking to budget." Mom said, "We'll see." Dad said, "Don't be dramatic." And Jenna, always vigilant, texted, "We got Max something nice, by the way." I typed back, "You didn't have to." But the phrase nice carried weight. Nice meant expensive. Nice meant showing off. Nice meant expectation. Christmas morning proved my fear. Max unwrapped a pen and socks while his cousins tore into the mountain of gifts I had painstakingly bought and labeled. The world seemed to tilt slightly. an imperceptible shift, but one I felt in every fiber of my being. I stood in the living room and let the zipper inside me open fully. This wasn't about a pen, a pair of socks, or even money. It was about respect, fairness, and recognition. I made a decision that would change everything. I would no longer be the faucet for everyone else's family. I returned to the bathroom, braced my hands on the sink, and stared at the mountain of photos, spreadsheets, and bank balances. The choice was clear: take back what I bought for others if it wasn't appreciated, and protect Max from being overshadowed. I came back into the living room with Max building a city out of empty boxes, drawing roads with his pen. "Mom," he asked quietly, "can we go home soon?" "In a bit," I said softly. "Want to help me first?" He nodded eagerly. I carried box after box to the SUV. "What are you doing?" Jenna asked, her voice tight, smiling, yet nervous. "Tidying," I said, calm, letting the words land with finality. The expectation fabric had split into two clean halves. I held up my phone, showing her the spreadsheet of purchases. Tablet, Lego, dollhouse, sneakers, headphones, art sets, all paid by me. Max approached with determination. "Buddy, can you bring anything that says Aunt Emily to the door?" He was careful, precise, a kid finally stepping into fairness. Jenna stepped to block him. "He doesn't get to decide." "Neither do you," I said. "Not about my money, not about my kid." Boxes went into the SUV. I snapped a final photo of the tree. One side bare, the other side proof of what had been purchased. I sent it to the family group chat. Gifts retrieved. Not out of punishment, out of clarity. Dad's voice came from the porch. "If you leave like this, don't come back." I turned slowly. "If you mean it, say it plainly." He didn't. Max buckled himself into the booster seat, small hands working the clips. I slid into the driver's seat, heart loud but steady. "What do you want for breakfast?" "Pancakes," he said, eyes bright, chocolate chips too many. "We can do that," I said, and didn't glance in the rearview mirror. At the diner on Maple, cracked red booths and a waitress calling everyone honey, Max drew a treasure map on the placemat. Volcanoes, crooked palm trees, and a square labeled home. He asked softly, "Can we make our own Christmas at home?" "We already are," I said. The group chat erupted into a bonfire of texts from family. "Bring the gifts back. This isn't healthy. You embarrassed us. Theft. Generosity is expected." But Max didn't cry. I didn't flinch. This was the first Christmas in years where we could see clearly, without the haze of expectation clouding everything. I stacked the boxes along the wall under our smaller, leaning tree. Max helped drag the lighter ones. "Do these still go to the cousins?" he asked. "Most of them," I said, "but we're going to do it differently." "How?" "We'll rewrap and label them honestly. Some will go to people who need them, and we'll make sure your name is on yours." He nodded as if this were obvious. For the first time, fairness wasn't an abstract idea. It was tangible. By mid-morning, the house was quieter than usual. Max and I sat amid the smaller tree and the boxes we had claimed, a little world of our own. The air felt lighter, but only for a moment. The pounding came first. Fists against the door, hard enough to make the wreath shiver. Max jumped. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," I said, and I meant it. Jenna's voice rang out, sharp and incredulous. "Emily, open up!" I opened the door, and she stood there in her puffer coat over pajamas, hair twisted into a shape that had once been familiar, a sisterly bond that now felt brittle, fragile, and distant. Mom hovered behind her with a dish towel like a weapon. Dad paced the curb like a general giving orders from a safe distance. "Where are the gifts?" Jenna demanded, eyes blazing. I said calmly, "You're ruining Christmas." "You were happy to ruin it for my kids," she shot back. "You can cry about labels. It's not about who bought what," I said. "It always is." "You just liked it better when I didn't say it out loud," I told her. Mom's church voice tried to break through. "Emily, bring them back. Your cousins are coming over later. We can sort this out as a family." "Sorting it out as a family is how we got here," I said. The pile of boxes behind me was a silent testimony. Hundreds of dollars of gifts, carefully chosen, meticulously wrapped, now reclaimed. Each one carried a note of intent, of fairness, of recognition that had been denied. Max tugged my sleeve. "Mom, can I show them my map?" I whispered back, "Later. We're finishing something first." Jenna's glare sharpened. "If you don't give them back, I'll tell the kids you stole Christmas." "You already tell them Santa is generous only when you are," I said. "I'm done playing that part." Her face twisted, as if she didn't recognize me. Perhaps she didn't. You're cruel, she said finally. No, I said, I'm clear. She pounded the door one more time. Mom tried reasoning, and Dad muttered legal threats. Eventually, footsteps retreated. Quiet settled. Max handed me the treasure map he had drawn for our apartment building, marking our little home with a Christmas tree in the window and 2 stick figures labeled Max and M. The sting behind my eyes wasn't sadness, it was relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't being used to prop up a story that diminished my child. We went home and rewrapped the gifts, labeling each one honestly. From Aunt Emily. Max helped me sort which gifts would go to relatives who needed them and which would be kept for ourselves or donated to families in need. Around 3, the pounding came again. Fists on the door, harder this time. Max flinched. I placed a hand on his shoulder. It's okay, I repeated, calm, steady. Jenna flung the door open. This is childish, she snapped. This is honest, I said. She picked up a tag. From Aunt Emily. The words looked wrong in her mouth, like someone had rewound a record she couldn't stop. Mom appeared behind her, eyes wet. We just wanted everyone to have a good Christmas. So did I said. Next year, you can match what you can afford, or you can be honest about what you can't. But you don't get both my money and my silence anymore. I stepped back, letting the words hang. Max and I quietly moved about, stacking the remaining boxes along the wall. My phone vibrated with angry messages from the family chat, but I didn't pick it up. Not this time. That night, Max and I built a cardboard city, drawing roads and marking places with his pen. He made a sign that said Max plus Mom's City Hall, sticking it to the wall with blue painter's tape like it belonged in a gallery. For the first time in years, Max's joy wasn't overshadowed by obligation or expectation. The next morning, I sent 3 emails, one to a local shelter with holiday wish lists, one to the school district social worker asking if any families needed winter coats, and one to my bank requesting a clean statement of December purchases. Not for anyone else, for me. I drove to my parents' house alone, 3 bags of gifts in tow. I rang the bell and stepped back. Jenna flung the door open again. This is childish, she snapped. This is honest, I said. She lifted a tag, reading aloud. From Aunt Emily. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Mom peeked from behind her. We just wanted everyone to have a good Christmas. So did I repeated. Next year you can match what you can afford, or you can be honest about what you can't, but you don't get both my money and my silence anymore. That evening, I muted the family chat for 24 hours. Max and I ate leftovers and played a game we made up with dice and Post-it notes. He asked if the treasure on his map could move around. I said yes, as long as we keep the map. I hadn't changed overnight. I'm still the list maker, the early payer, the helper. But I no longer subsidize a story where my son learns he is less because he is mine. A week later, Jenna texted, Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. She wore sunglasses indoors, pushing a latte toward me. Peace offering, she said. I was embarrassed, she admitted. For your kids? I asked. In front of everyone, she nodded. Tiny, we leaned on you too much. Yeah, I said. I'm not promising a brand new life tomorrow, but we'll stop pretending your money is our effort. I'll tell the kids the truth. That's a start. Her eyes lingered on her cup. Can I ask for one thing that isn't money? I braced. Can you send me that spreadsheet? I exhaled. Yes. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the scaffolding for survival, for fairness, for love. The days after Christmas were quieter, gentler, though not without tension. Max and I returned to our routine, but something had shifted. For the first time in years, I felt I wasn't constantly walking on eggshells around my family's expectations. The weight of always being the fixer, the provider, the silent savior had lifted, if only slightly. I began small experiments with clarity and honesty. If someone asked for money or favors, I paused before answering. I evaluated need versus expectation. Jenna, surprisingly, seemed to notice. Her texts were less frantic, less demanding. The first message she sent wasn't about gifts or expenses. It was a simple acknowledgement. Thanks for the honesty this Christmas. That moment felt like sunlight breaking through a cloud I hadn't realized had been there all year. It wasn't perfection and it wasn't absolution, but it was recognition. I also watched Max's reactions closely. Without the constant comparison to his cousin's gifts, he became inventive. He built little worlds out of empty boxes, reimagined ordinary objects, and found joy in what he had rather than what he didn't. One afternoon, he sat on the living room floor, drawing roads and marking them with sticky notes. Mom, this is our city, he said, voice proud. Yes, I said, it's our city, with rules we make. I realized then that boundaries weren't just for me. They were lessons for him. Lessons in fairness, autonomy, and self-respect. Max wasn't just a witness to my actions. He was learning from them. The reconciliation with Jenna came slowly. We met for coffee a few times, always cautious, always circling around the real issue. She admitted, often with tears, that she had relied too heavily on my generosity, that she had normalized my overextending myself. I listened, patient but firm, offering guidance without guilt or resentment. Can I ask something? She said one afternoon, voice hesitant. Of course, I replied. Next year, can we plan together? Realistic budgets, honest lists, not relying on you to fix everything. Yes, I said, but you need to follow through too. It was a pact, not a magic fix, but it felt like progress. Mom and Dad didn't change overnight. Mom's soft scolding still surfaced occasionally. Dad still offered aphorisms about family responsibility. But even their criticism became tempered by observation. They could see I had limits and that I would enforce them. That, in itself, shifted the family dynamics. I wasn't the invisible safety net anymore. I was a participant with voice and boundaries. Max and I also reached out to others beyond our family. I donated some of the reclaimed gifts to local shelters, sharing the joy with kids who had no Aunt Emily to subsidize their holidays. Max helped wrap packages, write notes, and distribute them. The act of giving, stripped of expectation, became meaningful. Mom, these kids get toys because they need them, not because I have to, Max said one afternoon, his words piercingly mature for an 8-year-old. Yes, I said, that's the difference. He smiled, the weight of comparison lifted from his shoulders. For the first time, he wasn't competing for love or recognition. He had it, just as he was. By late January, the family chat had softened. Jenna sent a photo of her kids with gifts labeled correctly, accompanied by a simple caption, "From Aunt Emily. Thank you." No hashtags, no boasts, no pretensions. Mom sent a single text, "We love you." It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And honesty, I realized, was more powerful than any amount of money or gifts. One quiet evening, Max and I sat under our small, leaning tree, playing dice and making up stories with Post-it notes. He leaned against me and whispered, "Mom, can the treasure move again?" "Yes," I said, "as long as we keep the map." I thought back to the years I had been invisible, giving endlessly, hoping for recognition that never came. Now, clarity had replaced obligation. Boundaries had replaced guilt. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because others had changed completely, but because I had. Max fell asleep on my lap, breathing slow and steady. I sat under the tree, phone silent, the room finally feeling like ours. I hadn't chosen cruelty. I had chosen clarity. Winter passed, and with it, the chaos of the holidays. The tension that had once clung to every phone call and text began to loosen. Max and I returned to our rhythm, school, work, and the small routines that shaped our days, but with a newfound sense of stability. Jenna and I continued to meet, cautiously building trust. Our conversations became honest instead of performative. She admitted, more than once, that she had depended too much on my generosity, that she had normalized my overextending myself as if it were a birthright. I listened patiently, offering guidance without shame, maintaining my boundaries while showing empathy. The spreadsheet she had requested became a symbol, not of control, but of shared responsibility. It allowed her to plan realistically, to see limits without shame. She started making her own decisions, asking when she needed guidance, rather than expecting a bailout. Mom and Dad watched quietly, still offering advice in their old-fashioned ways, but the dynamics had changed. They could no longer treat me as an endless source of support. I was a participant in our family, not a silent enabler, and in that shift, they began to respect me, not always perfectly, but consistently enough to notice the difference. Max flourished in ways I hadn't dared to hope. Without the constant comparison to his cousin's gifts and achievements, he explored his imagination fully. He built worlds out of cardboard, invented stories, and took pride in his creations. One evening, while taping a sticky note road across our living room floor, he looked up at me and said, "Mom, I like our city. It's ours." "Yes," I said, "it's ours, with rules we make." That simple acknowledgement, his recognition of autonomy and fairness, was more valuable than any gift I could have ever bought. The lessons extended beyond home. In small ways, I began to assert boundaries at work and with friends. The habit of overextending myself, of always being the fixer, loosened. It was uncomfortable at first. Guilt nudged me when I said no. But clarity became a muscle. I could protect myself and still act with generosity when it mattered. Max noticed the change, too. "Mom, you're different," he said one day, looking at me curiously. "I'm the same," I replied, "just clearer, that's all." By spring, the family dynamics had shifted subtly but permanently. Jenna continued to honor honesty in her parenting. The family chat no longer demanded compliance or silent sacrifice. There was still occasional friction, but now it was tempered by mutual recognition. The gestures of generosity were real, not transactional. The focus returned to the children, not to appearances, not to keeping score. One evening, sitting with Max on the couch, we reflected on the past months. "Mom," he whispered, "can the treasure move again?" "Yes," I said, "as long as we keep the map." He smiled, the kind of smile that comes from safety and understanding. It wasn't just joy, it was peace. I thought about all the years I had given without limits, chasing approval that never came. Now, clarity had replaced obligation. Boundaries had replaced guilt. And in that space, I discovered freedom. For me, for Max, and eventually, for my family. It wasn't perfection. Some wounds ran deep, some habits lingered. But for the first time in years, I felt a sense of agency and trust in myself. I could act from love, not obligation. I could give without losing myself. Max, asleep on my lap, breathed slow and steady. I sat under our leaning tree, phone silent, and the room finally felt like ours. For the first time in a long time, Christmas had a meaning beyond gifts, beyond debt, beyond expectation. It had meaning because we had chosen honesty, fairness, and respect, the gifts I had longed for, finally realized. I hadn't chosen cruelty, I had chosen clarity, and that choice changed everything.